Everyone, how's it going tonight? Thank you for coming to our meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum present. All trustees, with the exception of Mr. Lada and Mr. Martinez, are present. Joining us at the table, we're happy to have with us our superintendent, Mr. Juan Martinez, and members of the administrative cabinet in front of the room. Thank you all for being here as well. This time, ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand for the pledge to the American and the Texas flags. Thank you. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the Clint ISD mission statement is as follows. The mission of the Clint Independent School District is to prepare all students to be successful citizens. This district will work in partnership with the community and the family to create opportunities for the students to maximize their personal potential. To begin our meeting tonight, it's my pleasure to turn our meeting over to Mr. Juan Martinez, our superintendent, for the superintendent's comments. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Pendel, members of the board and audience. I am very delighted to be here tonight. Just very quickly, just for announcements, we have our district convocation on August 5th, 2016 at Clint High School. And of course, we are inviting all of you. That is August 5th at Clint High School. It's a Friday. We're changing it a little. It's a little bit different this year, so it's not Friday. And we'll do it in the morning again, beginning at 8 o'clock. So, of course, you are all cordially invited to join us for convocation. And the first day of school is August 22nd. And, of course, we're all anxious to start our school year, and we're ready with our principals, administrators, and our teachers ready for the beginning of the school year. I also want to inform you that we are very pleased with the turnout of our trainings that Mr. Acosta and his team has provided for our teachers. We've had probably close to, correct me, close to 450 teachers already. Out of about 600, we had probably about 80% of the teachers have come to the training for the Chromebook training, and we've offered trainings throughout the summer. We've had an average of 70, 80 teachers per session, sometimes smaller groups, so we are very delighted with that, and I want to publicly thank our teachers. They came on their own to these trainings, and I am very pleased. And of course, on behalf of the community, I want to thank them for joining us for these trainings. So thank you, Mr. Costa, and your team for providing that training for our teachers as well. That's all I have, Mr. Pendel. We are excited and ready to begin a new school year. Looking forward to a great school year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Any questions or comments for Mr. Martinez on the report? Thank you again. I guess that time of our meeting that we set aside for public forum. Do we have anyone signed up tonight? No. Okay, in that case, we will not have our public forum tonight, so no participants have signed up. To begin our meeting, we have a couple of presentations that the administration has lined up for us. First presentation is 2016-2017 preliminary budget review presentation. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Pendel, members of the board. At this time, I call Ms. Dana Klein. She will be the presenter for this first item.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Good evening, Mr. Pendel, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to present the preliminary budget to you. And I'm going to try and bring this up for our audience. There we go. This year, I didn't give you a separate book. It's in your package, and I hope that worked for you. I will move through this quickly, but if you have any questions at all, please feel free to stop me. This is the preliminary budget presentation, and on our first page, this outlines the reason for the preliminary budget presentation. The presentation is focused on how the budget was built, the assumptions that were used for the budget, guidelines, procedures, what our campuses do. This presentation does not provide you details about individual line items of the budget, as the board is required to approve the budget by function. That's a legal requirement by TEA. Some of the items that are of importance is the district budget must be prepared by August 20th. So we're a little bit ahead of the game. I think our budget is probably 95% prepared. We do have some areas that we need to do a little bit of work on, and I'll share those with you shortly. The president of the board must call for a public meeting for us to adopt the budget next month. That'll be an agenda item in the regular items in the board, which we'll go through at that time. When we go through a preliminary budget, and in August when we adopt the budget, no funds may be expended until our fiscal year begins, which is September 1st. So we're preparing right now. Essentially, our budget is prepared, as I said, about 95%. I think we have just a few changes, and then when we adopt the budget in August, we'll begin our expenditures in September. The district is continuing to use the allocation-based budgeting. It's an efficient tool, it's an equitable tool, and as we've discussed in prior years, we basically take all the money that TEA gives us and we look and see how it's provided to us. TEA, I wish, gave us $90 million and said do your best and do a good job with it, follow the rules, but they don't. What happens is TEA says, here's your funds, and I am on page 8 of your presentation, and they're based on our population. So we'll receive a certain amount of money for our bilingual ESL children, for our comp ed children, for our special education, career and tech, GT, our high school allotment, transportation, and the basic instructional program. So we receive what I like to call buckets of money. They said, here's your bucket of money for GT as an example. And then we must build our budget based on spending a certain portion, a required portion of that amount only on GT. There's many people that believe you get your funds and you can spend it on what the district feels is best. Well, excuse me. I apologize. That's not necessarily so. We have to expend our funds the way they're allocated to us by the state. So we have to spend it proportionally as we receive it, and that's how the budget is built. On the very next page, and this will be something that the audience probably cannot see, and I hope you can read. I try and blow this up as much as possible. After we have estimated what our revenues are going to be, we go through and we remove our hard cost, our payroll cost, our utility cost, things that we have to pay, and then we go through on a projected enrollment and allocate a dollar amount per student per campus. So if, for instance, we'll use Horizon High School as my example, we're projecting that Horizon High School will have a little over 1,600 children, and 41 of those are going to be GT. Well, we then multiply our 41 kids by $170 per student, and Horizon High School will receive $6,970 for their GT program. They can expend more, which they can take out of other pots of money that they receive, but they can expend no less in their budget, or rather not expend, but budget for no less than that amount. This allows me to show the state that we have budgeted the funds in the manner that they have sent them to me, and that our plan is to expend them in that same manner. So the budget process is equitable. It is allocable per campus based on the projected number of students that we will receive next year. And we've used this process for many years, and I believe it works very well. We'll move on. On page 10, the budget planning tools and SharePoint, I am required during the preliminary budget review to explain the process that we use to actually lay out the budget to our campuses and our departments. This year, we chose to change systems. We were using a system called Box. Now we're using SharePoint, which is within our systems that we already own. There is no cost for this, so we actually save some money moving from one system to another. I believe we were the first ones out there with budget. Other departments are using it now for other items, but it's worked extremely well. It's called SharePoint, and basically it's a digital management system online. People have passwords to go in. They go through our website, they choose budget and planning, and everything opens, and they have a massive amount of information. The next couple of pages on page 11 is basically a snapshot of what it looks like. We have a budget for 001 Clint High School, 002 Mountain View, and so on. And you're seeing campuses here, but this is true for all of our departments as well. When they open this folder, then they see their current and all of their historical information. We keep it in one place, so if they need to refer to prior years, it is available to them. On page 12 of your handout, this is what a campus or department will see for their budget planning process. The campus has already gone through their needs assessment, they've already gone through their campus improvement plans, and they've built the information necessary to help them then produce a budget that works for their campus. What are their needs on campus? What do they plan on using their funds that are allocated to them for? There is an Excel spreadsheet, that first line that you see there, and then a tremendous amount of information that we think is very helpful, and in some cases that they must review to ensure that they are producing a budget based on local, state, and federal guidelines. On page 13, this is what the first page of the Excel spreadsheet looks like. We use an Excel spreadsheet to eliminate any manual calculations, but this is an example of Horizon High School. So you can see that the buckets that I described earlier, for instance, Program Intent Code 11, which is for basic education, Program Intent Code 21, which is GT, the amounts that are allocated to them are based on their projected populations, then the amount that they need to budget, and just kind of a check and balances towards the right. So you can see, for instance, the total award for the local budget for Horizon High School was just over $450,000 based on their projected population. The campus then goes into each line item, and based on their needs assessments, their campus improvement plans, their scores, the information they gather at the campus, they start producing a line item budget. How much money do I need for testing materials? How much money would I like for general supplies? Based on the requirements and the allocation that we've given them for each different type of student and their populations. So it's a lengthy process, but it meets all of our state and federal guidelines. Our auditors are very pleased with this budget process because there's really not room for error. There's an explanation for every line that they have created a budget for. It's trackable, it's auditable, and it's something that the campus uses all year long. They may forget. It's 3 months later, where did I put that money for a certain item? They go right back to this folder and can look and see where their budgets are. Okay, we also on page 16 produce a calendar. This is something that is also required by the state, and also required that I share this calendar with you. The calendar is repetitious, same thing that we've seen year after year, but it does delineate the dates and times that things are due to us, and that is something that TEA and our auditors look at, is do you have a process, do you have your due dates, and are you working through in a timely fashion. Page 17 is a very brief snapshot of our account code structure to help you understand what a fund code is, what a function, because we have some of that crazy terminology, a PIC code, a program intent code. By no means are you experts at this, or should you need to be, but the basic structure is here for your information. On page 18, we'll start to discuss the actual budget, our enrollment and student information. I was really excited. I even took a picture and sent Mr. Martinez a snapshot when we finally calculated the year-end attendance because I was a little worried. We were hovering in just right under 96%, but at year-end we did end the year with 96%, and that is what our prior year budget was based on, so we did meet what we anticipated would happen. We have based the next year's budget on the same percentage rate at 96%. And it's important to note that we're not funded on the number of enrolled students. We're funded on the number of students in attendance. So we're budgeting at 96% of all students being at school, and that is what our budget is based on. We did end this current school year with a loss of about 37 students. We've seen a trend for about 5 years now, and I did run some quick numbers, and I didn't chart it for you, but I did write them down so I could share it with you. I found it interesting because we worry every year where enrollment is going to be for funding purposes. If we look at the enrollment history chart on page 19, and we go down to fiscal year 11-12, we can see that's when our decline started. The prior year, 10-11, we actually increased by 397 students. So in 11-12, we lost 6. We lost 51 in 13, but then we gained in 14. Then we lost, and we're looking at possible gain of 16 students just based on enrollment. Strictly, if every student came back and they were promoted, how many students would we have next year? We're looking at 11,645. But if we look at the last 5 years and we actually say, how many students have we lost? We've actually lost 3 in 5 years. That's where we stand, 3 in 5 years. So that is good information, but we're budgeted annually. So that year that we did lose 30, or this year that we're going to lose 37, or that we have, I apologize, our funding went down. So we don't have a steady stream of funding based on movement up and down. But I was pleased because I do look at every year as it stands alone. And I was just curious this afternoon, and I thought, how many have we really lost overall? We've only lost 3 students in 5 years. So that is good news, and I'm pleased to hear that. The chart above is the percent change in our campus's enrollment over the last few years. And you can see, you know, with quite a few minuses out there. So I'm hoping over the next few years we'll start building that back up and enrollment will go up. The next page, page 20, just some interesting information for you as well. I found this interesting. I hope you do. Our highest enrollment, or the number of students in the highest grade levels, is 3rd grade at 911, 5th grade at 914, and 9th grade at 959. And why do I look at this and why is it important for my budget? Is I need to make sure that we don't have a trend of trending out students, that our highest grade levels are maybe 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and that we're going to see a lower population in the next 4 years when we actually matriculate these students out. But it doesn't look that way. We've got a good high population throughout the grade levels, so if we have no change whatsoever, we should be able to actually maintain our enrollment at projections. The proposed tax rate and tax information on page 21. There's quite a bit of information here for you, but we have nothing that we can actually use to date. Certified values are due to the district on July 25th. I have spoken with the tax office, and they said it'll be July 25th. I was hoping that I could talk them into something a little bit sooner. We have some preliminary information. So at the bottom of the chart, you'll see the year 2016. The tax office is currently estimating that we're going to add about $81 million in tax value. I think that's very high, and you can see, and this is why we do chart this, you see the red, the difference between the preliminary and certified values is a negative every year. So the tax office normally overestimates what our values are for some reason. I'm sure they're doing the best job that they can, and this may be to people coming in and filing their protest. Thank you. I was trying to think of that word. And so it's maybe people aren't filing protests till the very last minute, because I know they have a deadline as well. But right now, we are receiving information that will have about an 8% increase, 8.01% increase. I've budgeted on 2% increase. Now, what happens if it actually is 8? Not a lot, because if we actually generate more local revenue, we lose state revenue. So one will go up, one will go down, and there's not a big difference there. It's not going to make a big difference. Now, the nice part about it, the big difference is if we actually are bringing in commercial base, that will help us. If we actually are bringing in new homes and housing, that will help us. So right now, that's kind of a pretty large increase. That would be the largest one in the last couple of years. But we'll have to see how that looks in late July. So we'll bring that to you in August. Page 22 provides some historical information for you and some TRE information. I know we have never really at length spoken about a TRE, a tax ratification election. Many districts in our area have. Right now, a very low and conservative estimate, if we had a TRE and we actually increased our maintenance and operation rate to the max, which would be $1.17, which I'm not a proponent of, just some information for you. At a minimum, we would be bringing in an additional $5 million a year, every year, once that tax rate went up. It's probably actual calculations closer to the 6, 7, even possible low 8 millions per year, but that is something that you may want to consider in the future. If we continue to trend down in enrollment, then we will no longer have any additional revenue from the state. We will remain flat and stagnant. At that point, we will have to start making some different decisions. Page 23 discusses our compensation and salary information. This has already been approved by the board, and we appreciate that. The information provided is some statistics that state payroll is 84% of our budget, which is absolutely normal for any school district. Most school districts, even if they're a small district, are around 82%. So 82 to 85 is a normal percentage for a school district. We did increase the overall budget by just over $1.2 million based on the recommendation by the board for increases to the general fund, child nutrition, well, actually to all employees. You approved for all employees, and those tables listed are how the numbers panned out after everything was rolled forward and increased based on your recommendations. We currently have actually completed, but continue to ensure that we have everything in order, reorganizing the Horizon area, where Horizon High School will become a 9, 10, 11, 12. Ricardo Estrada and Horizon Middle School will become 6, 8. So we've moved some staff around, and it actually went very well. Everybody worries, do we have the right staff to move and make this right? We did very well. We actually had some excess staff, created some additional positions that were needed. And on page 24, I provided you a list. We will continue to use the TASB model for the human resources purposes. We've increased the budget by the compensation as described and as approved by you. Thank you. We have reviewed our stipends, and then we have a list here, and I won't go through the entire list with you, but those are our new and/or reorganized positions to serve the reconfiguration in other areas of the district. And the last few items are some changes that were made in departments, and the final items are what we currently have in place. We have not reduced our benefits to employees at all. We still are maintaining a universal pre-K program. We're maintaining our health insurance coverage at over $3,700 per year per employee. We're maintaining our life insurance benefit per employee, all of our voluntary dental and vision programs, and our wellness benefits. Next page, on page 25, is some more information that I found helpful in creating the budget, and I hope you do in reviewing. The very first key district stats was something that I was very pleased to see. We work hard to do this, and I know Mr. Martinez has worked extremely hard to get us there. But if you look at the second to the last line, our student-to-teacher ratio, we see us trending down and finishing the year out at about 16.6. So part of the budget process and part of creating a good budget is not only having money where it needs to be to buy books, to pay electricity, but it's actually to ensure what's happening at the campus, in the classrooms, is what administration wants. So that does prove to be true. I was also very pleased to see that our experience, and you see a histogram there, that our experience is right in the middle and heavy on the higher side. That's something unusual for a large district, because when you hire, some districts tend to bring in new hires at very low experience, but you can see across the district that we're the highest at our teaching staff, and this is just teaching, our teaching staff with years 5 to 10 years of experience, and then the next level is the 10 to 15, and we're actually, like I said, the highest to the right side of the chart than we are the left. So that does mean that we are hiring experienced staff in our classrooms. On page 26, we move to the proposed general fund budget. In order to prepare this, the assumptions that we used are a few that we have already discussed, that we will have a 96% tax collection rate, a 96% student enrollment or refined ADA percentage. We've already approved our compensation plan. We are recommending currently, and we'll know more at the end of July, that we maintain our current tax rate. There will be no change to our tax rate. We did have some items that we had to increase and take a look at. We're on the last year of our SRO contract. The Sheriff's Department had received a grant, and we were paying for a portion of that, which gives us officers at our secondary campuses. Our portion became the largest portion at the last year of the grant, which is this year, so we did have to increase our budget to pay for that last year, about $240,000. Now, this grant, as far as we know right now, is non-existent for next year. So in order to have the additional security, we're okay for all of next school year, but the year after that, I don't know where we'll stand with that. We'll have to look at it. And our expense at $240,000
is their expense at around 6, right? So we're looking at, over a $500,000 expense if this is something, at the higher end of that if we want to look at after next year. We've also increased our utilities by about $600,000 to meet the new Chapter 41 increases and other rate increases. Mr. Aldridge will be providing you with some information later in the meeting. I do believe that I will have to look at this again. I don't believe $600,000 is going to be enough. We shared some information today that he's going to present to you, and the percentage is a little bit higher than what we had thought. It may be about $1.3 million, and I'm looking at $600,000 based on information that's a few months old. So I will look at this and revisit it with you when we present the official budget to you in August. So how did the numbers pan out? If we look at page 27, comparing one year budget to, or a year's budget to the next year, is really to maybe highlight the changes, because each year stands alone. Every year we have different needs. But to go over the changes and try and explain where we went higher or lower per function, we're estimating our revenue right now at an additional $1.876 million, which is in line with what we have been looking at. We do have what's called an updated template that I actually received this afternoon, so I'll be rerunning, and I'll be running revenue projections probably weekly until we actually approve the next budget. I'm not expecting a tremendous amount of change, but we may have some. In instruction, we have a slight increase in that area, and that's primarily due to pay increases, things like that, staffing. You do see a very large increase and decrease in function 13 and 21, and I wanted to explain this to you. We actually have another agenda item that'll address this for this year. In the middle of the year last year, TEA sent out some new requirements for our School First report. One of the things that TEA, and they're kind of famous for changing things and letting us know after we've already begun the process, they changed the way our administrative ratios look. So basically, we all had a rate that we should not exceed, and it was 12%. Well, they went through and reformatted and said, if you're a school district between this enrollment and this enrollment, now you're 10% and you're 11%, and changed the way we do things. So in order to try and meet that percentage, I looked at how we coded staff. TEA, the way they determine what your administrative cost ratio is they use certain functions. So for instance, they use function 21, I believe they use 2341, and they take that and divide it out by your number of students to come out with that percentage. When I looked at our staff, we had a tremendous amount of staff coded to function 21, which was okay. When I looked at the rules and requirements, they were fine, they were okay. But I really needed to figure out how I could make some moves to meet this new requirement by the state. I spoke with our auditors to get some ideas, and our curriculum staff, our coordinators, are staff developers. That's what they do. And they actually really are better coded to function 13 than they are to 21. They're fine in 21, but they're better in 13. Being better in 13 actually helps our administrative cost ratio. So you see this big change here simply because we're swapping the coding for a group of staff members. You see the increases that follow along through the functions, which are in function 31, guidance counseling. We've added some counselors there, and campuses have elected to increase some of the budgeted line items for them. Normal percentages across the board, you see another large one in function 51, maintenance and school services. Primarily the $600,000 for utilities is there. Overall, not a lot of changes here, just increases that are expected.
The data processing services?
Data processing in function 53, 364. Some staffing, and we also increased some funds for bandwidth in the district. Okay. The increase for our lease purchase is not for any additional buses, but the 9 that we've purchased over the last few years to continue those payments. So overall, if we look in that column entitled 2016-17 budget, we're looking at a $95.3 million budget with excess revenues of about $1.8 million, which then lends itself to, why aren't we spending that? Well, without enrollment increasing, we need to look at the future. We discussed this, I think, a board meeting or two ago, to ensure that we have some funds that we can roll forward. Can we spend these on one-time expenditures? Absolutely. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to present the budget at its simplest form to you at this time. What you're not seeing in this budget is all of the fund balance expenditures that we've approved throughout the year. I will bring those to you, but I wanted you to see kind of like an apples to apples before we muddied the water up with fund balance. Not all projects that were approved to be expended with our fund balance, some of our tracks, things like that, have not been completed. So we'll end the year and ask you to approve the reduction to fund balance with the amounts that are remaining to expend when we come back to you in August. Not the way I prefer to do it. You've approved it. I should be able just to carry it forward, but accounting requirements do not allow me to. I must present that to you again every year.
The 2.9 million for the computers is gonna be in the fund balance, or was that grant money, or?
It's been expended. It was a combination. We actually used some IMA, some instructional materials allotment funds. We used some Title I funds. We used some local funds. We had some computers that were already in place that were repurposed. So they've all been purchased. You will not see, and you did approve, the board approved, I don't remember the amount, was it 2.9? That the board approved. All of those funds have been expended, so they will not carry over into the next year, no.
You approved them at different, different times?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
We didn't approve the 2.9 as a big sum.
No, and you're not required.
I didn't remember seeing that amount.
Amount, no. The federal funds you do not approve, and they're approved by the feds, and we of course want those funds. They were already accounted for, IMA as well. The budget had some areas that we could look at to purchase computers, and the amount that the board approved, and I apologize, I don't remember the exact amount. Mr. Costa, do you, what we drew down in fund balance? 890,000? That you approved and we have expended. That was, when we draw down fund balance, what that means is we're adding to the budget for that year out of our fund balance. But all of the computers have been purchased and we're in good shape. Okay. The next page, page 28, is the same information without the comparison, but I think it's important to show that 54% of, almost 55% of our budget is in instruction. There's no requirements, there's no percentages. Years ago, there was a 65% percentage that was placed. No one could meet it. It was almost impossible, and that's, I think, why it's gone. There isn't a dedicated amount, but being in the high 50s is a good area. Our budget is devoted to instruction. We do have other areas that we have no choice. We have to pay the light bill, the water bill, all of that, so you'll see your other higher areas in the maintenance area. Page 29 is just a chart where we break out the information in a different format for you. Same $95.3 million budget, but you can see how much is in payroll, professional services, supplies, other operating costs. You see the debt service. That is actually the bus payment. That's why I have buses there. And we've got a small amount in capital outlay this year. And then we see the breakout below on page 29 by program intent code, which falls in line and works exactly as we're supposed to with our state funding. And once again, I wish we could just put the money where we want to put it, but we have to organize our budget the way we're funded. On page 30 is the proposed child nutrition budget. As you're aware, we have been trying to draw down our fund balance in the child nutrition program. The program has been doing so well, and we really do appreciate that, but the program cannot carry a fund balance in excess of 3 months' worth of operating expenditures. The Department of Agriculture has approved our fund balance reductions. That's something they're required to do. We can't just decide we want to spend the fund balance. We actually have to have written approval from them. And you can see our current year, we've got a projected negative balance, which would mean that our expenditures are more than our revenue, but that was the way we approved our budget because we needed to draw that fund balance down, and we're actually looking at doing the same thing for next year. Once this year and next year's budgets have been completed, we should be at that 3-month expenditure and no longer need to draw that fund balance down. But we do monitor it annually, and if we have to draw down, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It means that your program is operating. I can't tell you the number of sessions that I've sat in where people are raising their hands saying, how are you making your child nutrition program work? We're always having to supplement it with our general fund, and I'm very happy that I get to sit there and not participate. So that's a good thing. Our program is operating efficiently. Then our final page discusses our debt service budget. Right now, we have little information. Our templates aren't updated with all the changes that we have made. TEA has not updated all of our information. These are probably not conservative, maybe a little bit higher proposals, but I think they're fair. Our local revenue that we will obtain from taxes is about $4.3 million. I'm estimating right now in IFA and EDA that we're going to have 5.4, 4.9. So we are looking at the state funding a higher amount than they ever have before for us. So I may be just a little bit high. I'm not certain yet. But either way, we have capitalized interest because we knew we were going to be in this situation. The way the state funds these programs is you have to make a debt service payment before they consider the debt eligible. So we just sold bonds. How would we make a payment on those bonds? So we've got a 2-year lag that we're going to be working with, and that's where we have capitalized interest to make the difference up from the state. But next year, all of that should be coming in. So my projections may be just a little bit high right here at 70%, but I'm hoping that they're fairly close. If they're not, we're still fine. We have the capitalized interest. If we don't use the capitalized interest that we have, we just make an extra bond payment. We pay down. I'm not allowed to use that money for anything other than a bond payment or to reduce debt. So I think our financial advisors set us up very well, and we actually will probably be able to reduce debt in the following year, in year 3. Okay? So that is a very quick review of the preliminary budget. Again, I believe that it's in good shape, just a few changes that we need to look at, and we'll present those to you in August. But we will be presenting a balanced general fund budget and an intentional unbalanced food service budget, child nutrition program, and our debt service budget is in good shape, and we should be fine. Any questions?
Question?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Very good job, thank you. Our next presentation is a pilot program, 21st Century Classroom Learning Environment presentation. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Pendel, members of the board. At this time, I call Mr. James Leary-John, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary and CNI, and Mr. Acosta, the Chief Technology Officer, both present this item. We also have the principal from Frank Macias Elementary, and she, in case you have any questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Pendel, members of the board. The 21st Century Learning Pilot was also called the Thrive program here in Clint ISD. It was a program that was recommended by both Ms. Bettis and Ms. McCarthy that they implemented last year. And I'm kind of recapped it for you here. Got some pros and cons that I'd like to share with you about what we've learned about the program. First off, 2 campuses were chosen. Horizon Middle School was our middle school that every campus 6th grade teacher was involved in the pilot. And at Frank Macias, we chose 8 5th grade teachers. Looking at that, there were about 171 students at Frank Macias and 467 students at Horizon Middle School. The students did receive a laptop, and they also were given the Thrive curriculum. It was, I believe, from McGraw-Hill. McGraw-Hill was our publisher that had the Thrive curriculum. Frank Macias used math and English language arts. The curriculum was on the computer, and Horizon Middle School used math, English, language arts, and science. Cost of the laptops, the breakdown was, for Frank Macias, it was about $120,000 for the laptops, and Horizon Middle School was about $242,000. The total cost of those laptops was about $362,000, and they're a 3-year lifespan for those laptops. And Ms. Klein talked about earlier the laptops that some are repurposed. These are included in that. So Mr. Acosta is reusing those again this year for students. The program that was implemented, the Thrive program, the breakdown of the cost of that program, Frank Macias, it cost about $6,100. At Horizon Middle, it would have cost $25,000 for the curriculum, but the publisher donated that cost to Clint ISD for the pilot. The professional development was considerable. There was 30 days of coaching and training at a cost of $61,000. And then the project management, working with the Thrive company and coordinating with them, was $26,000. Of course, that doesn't include the professional development we ourselves did in-house with our own staff, and including the project management from Mr. Acosta's department.
So these were outside costs?
Yes, ma'am. That was the Thrive company from McGraw-Hill. Some of the things that, besides Thrive, that Frank Macias used, for example, Ms. Davis shared with me, teachers were using it for ebooks, iStation, Think Through Math. They were using News ELA, Texas News ELA, StoryWorks from Scholastic. These were other software programs that we had at our fingertips. Front Row, Education Galaxy, and STEM Scopes for Science. So just a few of the other things that we were using at Frank Macias for those programs. One of the things that we wanted to see was what were the pros and what were the cons. So we did get feedback from both campuses on pros and cons. First off, I think we could say this across the board at both campuses. You know, the kids loved having the laptops. Every day when you would go in, they were empowered, improved their technical skills. We did see a rise on their STAR chart, a small rise, but those two campuses both did have a rise on the STAR chart. And STAR is the technology metric that we have to submit to TEA. It's 1A, not 2A's like the STAR exam. We did see a lot of customized and individualized learning going on. The Thrive program, of course, allowed for that. A lot of the teachers at Frank Macias also used Gloucester to create student posters and reflective work in the classroom. Students could take pictures of it, and it was interactive. Students created and developed tutorials and presented at Parrot Night using their laptops and the software. Student interest and engagement was high, and improved homework rates at Frank Macias could be seen in the 5th grade because they were taking it home and doing it online or on the computer. There was a lot more responsibility. Frank Macias actually implemented like a techie program where the 5th graders went in and mentored the lower grade kids on how to develop their technology skills. Student research and presentation opportunities were there. There was a lot more feedback, real-time. Teachers could grade the exams in Thrive and give it back to the student immediately. There were opportunities for teachers to also have those interventions, those teachable moments. And the students didn't need to go to the lab. They already had a lab in their room, so the teacher had technology access a lot faster than waiting to go to the rotation for the lab and wait for the 2 or 3 labs that are available at campus to be available. There were hotspots that were provided. 8 to 10 students had mobile devices if they needed a hotspot in order to get online when they didn't have that access. There was also some cons that we found with the program. The first one, the Thrive program did not align well with the TEACS resource system that we use here in Clint ISD. The program also caused issues with our benchmarks, because if the program didn't align well with our TEACS, then it also didn't align with when we were giving our district-wide benchmarks. What we found midway through was the company that owned Thrive actually got sold and was no longer in the United States. So the curriculum was more a national curriculum instead of a state curriculum. There were technology issues based on the Thrive product, not on our end with our network, but on their side. The computers, the software sometimes would freeze, kids would have to log out or time out, and there were issues that they did work well with us on it, but we did still have those issues with the timeouts and the issues with the students getting logged out or having to start over on an exam or things like that. Teacher support outside, and anytime when we had change were sites outside the United States, so we had to work with different time zones sometimes and different variables from, working with customer service in another country. And, we learned a lot from the rollout. So it's a con, but it's going to be a pro for us later. We learned about get it out to the kids in what timely manner, make sure the parents know, have parent nights. So it was very good that the pilot gave us that option to learn those tricks of the trade that we're going to do for our bigger rollout. And then the training and the project development, the costs were extremely high. The $61,000 for the training and the $26,000 for the project development. We did think that was pretty high. Also, Horizon Middle School was involved in the pilot. We asked for their pros and cons as well. Here's Horizon Middle School's pros. The content was available in language arts, math, and science, and so they had a good resource of content on their computers. Thrive embedded coaching throughout the school year, so those 30 days, there was staff coming in and working with our teachers, so they got a lot of one-on-one interventions on how to use technology in the classroom. Students could work at their own pace on the curriculum. Teacher feedback and monitoring was real-time, just like at Frank Macias. Teachers had the ability to pause the software and have all eyes come up on me. That was one of the things that the teachers at Horizon Middle liked. Teachers could also assign homework, as at Frank Macias. Teachers also could differentiate the lesson. If one student was struggling, they could give them that lesson again, or a lower lesson or a higher lesson. The modules had various components for students within that module. They had ways that they could blow the font up and listen to languages. They could move it back and forth between English and Spanish as needed. There was a lot of collaboration amongst the students. There was project-based learning that was going on, a lot of technology-based learning, and there were student reports that were available for the teachers to see. I didn't talk about this in the PowerPoint, but we also transformed the classroom environment with the furniture. The furniture was not the regular classroom furniture. They had stools and different types of seats and different types of desks that could configure differently, because we wanted the whole experience not only to be the technology being different, but also the environment to be different as well. Some of the cons at Horizon Middle. Again, that Thrive curriculum did not mesh well with the TEKS. We see that that was a big thing throughout. Sometimes the administrators didn't have access to the reports and to see what the teacher was doing with the students. And so therefore they would have to meet with the teachers individually. There wasn't a reporting area where the administrators could log in and see it. Teachers were not always able to predict the upcoming lessons unless they went through each module and each lesson on their own. And so that was kind of cumbersome for the teachers. It took a great deal of time for the teacher to prepare each lesson, and then required a great deal of flexibility and technology know-how. But you know, the teachers, they really came up to par on their technology skills. Some of the other things that were cons, teachers had to go through each component prior to having the student lesson, so they could also make sure they understood all those misunderstandings that kids could have. Students didn't always answer precisely, and they could get the question wrong. And so the teacher would have to be aware of the answers and how they needed to look at those. The kids got smart on the third bullet there. They learned how if you refresh, and take your test over again, you can go back and then retake it and maybe get the same question again and get the right answer now because you saw the right answer on the tutorial. So they learned how to use that refresh button over and over again. So we had to monitor that. Difficult to have a substitute step in. We have a substitute in that classroom and they don't have any idea or training on what to do. We have to have a plan B ready, and the teachers did a good job with that, but it still was an issue. Students were unable to initiate the lesson some days because of technical issues. Again, all of those were not on our side. They were with the Thrive software itself. Also, some more cons that Horizon Middle had, and remember, they had a much larger group of students participate and teachers, so they had a lot more feedback that they gave us. Students took assessments. The teacher was unable to stop the assessment sometime and start it another day. The kids would have to start all over again. Uploading new students sometimes took a while. Our benchmarks weren't always aligned because the Thrive curriculum and modules didn't match. Teachers sometimes needed that extra time. Technical issues, and we had to work a lot with the technical engineers with the Thrive company to iron out a lot of the issues. Also, it did require some technical support. The rosters sometimes didn't refresh even after we uploaded them. Assessments were not always seen as reliable because the kids could refresh that page and then go back and retake it. Each Thrive modeling session required substitutes and coverage for the teachers when they had that PD. Printing the lesson components at first became an issue, but that did get ironed out later. And then there were various technical issues that were encountered throughout that we always had to kind of address and kind of fix on the fly. So there were 8 teachers at Frank Macias. I pulled 3 random teachers to see how their scores came out on the STAR exam. So you see 3 different teachers. Teacher 1 on math had 100% of their students pass the 5th grade STAR exam. On reading, they had 92% passing rate, and then on science, 85. Teacher 2 had an 83% passing rate on math, a 57 on reading, and a 48 on science. And then teacher 3 had an 83% on math, a 78 on reading, and a 67 on science. So you can see that even with the program, it does rely on the teacher to be on their game and be working hard to get the students to pass. Likewise, there were 12 teachers at Horizon Middle. I pulled 6, 3 math and 3 reading teachers from that campus. Teacher 1 had a 90% passing rate. Teacher 2 had a 41% passing rate. Teacher 3 had a 79% passing rate on reading. And then on math, teacher 4 had a 77%, teacher 5 a 71, and teacher 6 a 57. So even though we know that there were some issues with the curriculum, it still does heavily rely on the teacher to be teaching the lessons and making sure the students are where they need to be.
Mr. Littlejohn, just
Yes,
a quick
ma'am.
question. As far as the teachers, are they all monolingual, bilingual? Does that have anything?
They were at the middle school. Of course, these are all students because we don't have bilingual. At the elementary, I had a mix. I believe one of the 3 was a bilingual teacher. And we saw things pretty consistent across the board, bilingual or monolingual, as far as scores go. I also want to point out, I want to give you the overall total at Horizon Middle because the whole entire 6th grade was in the Thrive pilot. I wanted to show you their scores from the previous year and how they compared to 2015. Keep in mind that the state standard went up 5%. So students had to get 5% better on the exam. So in reading at Horizon Middle, in 2015, their state exam was a 70. They dropped to a 57. And math was a 68, and they dropped to a 56. Frank Macias, because it wasn't every teacher, the grade level was pretty consistent. I didn't break that down because it was not every 5th grade teacher that was in the pilot. The other thing I wanted to point out is across the board, here's the breakdown of how the TEA passing rates were across the state. I have my circle on the wrong grade level. For 5th grade math, there was no growth at the state at all. In 2014-15, for 5th grade math, it was a 79, and this year it was a 79. There was no growth. That's considering it was a 5% increase on the passing standard. If you look at 6th grade, where my circle is statewide, the kids went down statewide on reading. In 2014-15, there was a 75% passing rate, and this year was a 74% passing rate. So statewide in 5th grade and 6th grade, you can see how we compared. And then reading, the same. You can see on 5th grade, that went down from a 78 to 75 statewide, and from a 76 in 6th grade to a 71 statewide as well. So we saw the same trend. Our gap was just larger. So what did we learn from the pilot? It's based on the teacher. Technology is a tool in the classroom. If you've got a very effective teacher, the very effective teacher is going to do a really good job and use that tool to their advantage. Teachers are the biggest determiner of student learning. The Thrive curriculum was not aligned to our state standards, and we are not going to continue to use it. And actually, we made that determination, I'm going to say February or so of this year, that we were not happy with the Thrive curriculum and we were not going to continue with it. And we did adjust a little at that time, but at that point, we just determined that it's just not where we wanted it to be. The Thrive program did have a lot of technical glitches. The Thrive company is no longer owned by a U.S. company, and that the individual student growth was attained from the excitement generated from the use of the computers and the development of that personalized learning. And so I did a little bit of research, and I included some information on a new study from the RAND Corporation, and it talks about personalized learning. And what they're saying is that students in the 21st century are expecting that personalized learning. They're expecting that device or that tool or that one-on-one interaction, and that technology devices assist in that personalized learning movement. And there's some other research that was done by the RAND Corporation. In schools that utilize 60 schools that utilize that personalized learning format to include using technology devices, all of them showed great gains when that tool was given to the teachers. The initiatives that support personalized learning will also include that they can connect with students around the world and then students in different areas. And also that those who characterize personalized learning as students just using computers or other devices greatly oversimplify it. Using technology to deliver instruction is an option, but the potential benefits extend well beyond the role. And we saw that. If the teacher was a great teacher and got into it, we saw that there was the growth. If the teacher wasn't as strong, then we didn't see the growth as we expected. So we're, bringing forth, we learned a lot, and it's going to help us, and that's why we piloted with these two groups, and it will assist us in our rollout of the 101 initiative. And that being said, our focus with that is not on a curriculum, it's on a research and a technology tool. So our new focus with that 101 is we're not going to adopt a state curriculum or a program. We're going to use it as the Google Classroom, the resources we have. Just today I met with the Pearson rep, and we already own from kindergarten through 5th grade, all of our books are already all e-books, and so we already own them for every student. It's part of the adoption. So every student in say a 3rd grade, he has his math book, his science book, his social studies book, and his reading book, and it'll be on his Google Chrome. So he can take it home. If he can't find his book, he can just pull it up on the laptop, and that's something we already own. So I'm working with Philip, and I are working on that to get that set up so that every student can have that access. And we already own other books across the district and other software pieces as well.
Does that look like it's going to be a thing of the future? Excuse me, as far as
Yes,
curriculum
Mr.
on
Pindell. The students, when you ask them to look something up, they Google it. Everyone Googles it. Kids don't even know what a phone book is anymore. The excitement that the kids have had, the teachers, Mr. Martinez talked about all the Google Chrome sessions we've been having in the Google Classroom and all the training sessions that we've had. The teachers have just been great. We had a teacher at Carol T. Welch the other day say, I'm excited. I'm scared, but I'm excited. And she was talking about all of the things she had learned in the Google Chrome. Likewise, all of our special education students, we have purchased software called Read Write software, and if they are accustomed to having a word read to them or highlighted or a picture, that software will generate it for them on their Google Chromebook. So any document that they have on their Google Chromebook, it will generate and make that accommodations for them. So that's purchased for every special ed student as well. And ELL students can use that as well.
Thank you for the presentation.
You're
'Cause, we didn't have information on the pilot program, and I appreciate it. One of my questions is, were there a lot of computers damaged?
Mr. Acosta, I think, can
Did the
answer.
students take care of them, or?
Out of the 665 devices, 4 were lost, but we did have insurance, and we filed police reports, and we're going to get the money back for those.
Okay.
There's about 48 that were damaged, but again, we had accidental damage warranty. So this summer, our technicians picked all of them up, and we're refurbishing them, getting them back to new state.
Okay, but the parents don't pay for the damaged
No,
computers?
the insurance covered everything.
And these students that had what are they, laptops?
Yes.
Yeah. Did they do their benchmark testing on there? Or is that the problem, one of the cons, right?
Those students did do their benchmarks on the yogas.
Okay.
And the devices that we're going with next year, the same thing. We already tested them out, and they can benchmark on there.
Part of the difference, Ms. James, part of the difference is they were also taking assessments in Thrive, and that's where we're having more of the issue with the technical difficulty. With ours, we can build the test ourselves, and so it's our own network that will be running that test. The bigger issue with those benchmarks was the TEKs weren't aligned with their curriculum, their software. That was the bigger issue that we saw.
Okay, and they used them all year?
Yes, ma'am,
yeah.
they sure did.
Okay. Well, so you learned a lot from the pilot program for
For this next year, we sure did. We sure did. And I think we're going to be really ready to help our students. I know when you go to college, every child has some type of device, and looking everything up. And a lot of the teachers have been using the phones in the classroom. They'll put a sign up so the administrator knows that the kids aren't on the phone for the wrong reasons. It'll say mobile device in use, and they're Googling or they're using different survey tools or different kinds of apps in their classroom. And so when we've done instructional rounds, we've seen those signs, and so now the kids will pull out their laptops and
Are we gonna be doing STAR testing on the computers next year with everyone having a computer?
we are going to do that for the students who would benefit it from the most, and we've always done it that way. Our end-of-course exams, if students come in and it's suited to them, we always do what's in the best interest of the student. So each individual student will be tested based on what would be the best test placement for them. But we will prepare all of our special ed students to use those tools, and if it's going to benefit them to have it read to them and they can choose, and that's going to be an option for all of them. But are we moving to 100% online STAR exams? No, ma'am. We'll follow what the students need. We teach a lot of those test-taking strategies where they use the book and things like that. But each student is unique, and as they need it, we'll explore that option for them.
And you said these computers are gonna be used
Yes,
for
ma'am.
next year?
We've already got them reconfigured, and
The students that have them now get to keep them?
I believe they're going to get issued a Google Chromebook, and these computers are going to go to our seniors.
Oh,
These have a little bit more. That's one thing we learned I didn't put in there. The computers we bought for this program were too much for these kids. They didn't need all the memory. They didn't need all of the programs. They were above what we expected, and the Google Chrome will suit the students better at these grade levels. So that's why we said, let's move these up to the seniors.
Well, thank you, and also thanks to Ms. Davis and her team, and also the Horizon Middle School, because I know that there was probably plenty of headaches they had to go through, and
They did
the
a
learning process really is going to benefit all of us.
Yes, ma'am. They did a great job.
Any other questions, comments?
I just want to understand one point.
Yes, ma'am.
The testing scores that you show, you basically are saying that with or without the computers, the scores would probably have been the same between these three teachers?
I'm speculating that the teacher is the variable.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
The teacher, a good teacher with the right tools is going to be a good teacher. A poor teacher with the right tools is still going to be a poor teacher. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Ms. Littlejohn.
Very welcome,
report.
Mr. Pindell.
Thank you very much. Move on to the administrative report section of the agenda. Would anyone like to discuss any of the reports this month presented in our board book? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Would any board member like to discuss any item on the consent agenda at this time? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Consent agenda is approved. Went on to our action items tonight. The first item is discussion and possible approval of the proposed tax rate and scheduling a public meeting to discuss the 2016-2017 budget and proposed tax rate. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Pendel and members of the board. This time I call Ms. Klein again. Ms. Klein?
Thank you again, Mr. Martinez. Good evening, Mr. Pendel, members of the board. Our first item is asking the board to approve the proposed tax rate, which is the current tax rate. We are proposing no changes. The TASB recommends that the board actually call for a meeting, and that's what this is for next month. We do have to wait for the tax office to send us the final information. At the end of July, we'll calculate the tax rate. Based on the information we have, we're not proposing any changes. We don't expect any. If there was a change to the tax rate, we would be required to bring it to you for approval before we could actually adopt it. But we are required to post notices on our website, in the newspaper. They have to run
concurrently for 10 days and prior to the board meeting. So we do need to have a adopted proposed tax rate in order to move forward. So what we're asking you for tonight is to call a public meeting to discuss the budget and proposed tax rate on August 25th, which is our next regularly scheduled board meeting at 5:30, and that we will be publishing our required notices in the newspaper before then.
Questions?
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to approve the proposed tax rate as presented and scheduling a public meeting to present the public proposed tax rate on August 25th, 2016 at 5:30 PM. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Klein. Our next item is approval to amend the 2015-2016 general fund budget. Ms. Martinez?
Once again, Mr. Pendel, members of the board, Ms. Klein will present this item.
Thank you. Our fiscal year end will be July 31st, and we're looking at our budget, what actually is working, what we may need to change. This request is not any increase to the budget, but rather reorganization from one function to another. We are asking to reduce our instruction budget and increase, as we discussed in the preliminary budget, we need to change all of those coordinators from a function 21 to a function 13, along with some of the staff development that they may have provided or contracted for. That is the increase to function 13 at 900,000 to decrease function 21 where it originally was expended. We believe that this is going to help us in the future with our school first ratings as well. We would like to increase our counselors, guidance and counseling, function 31 by 99,000. We also, while reviewing other items, felt that testing materials were more appropriately charged to function 31 as described by the state, so we're moving those testing materials to function 31. We do have some increased costs in legal fees, so we do want to increase function 41. We are anticipating the increase to function 36. Right now, we have met our budget and all of our above district costs for athletics have been funded, but we still have August and football season and a few things to happen. So I would like to increase that function to be prepared, because I do not have any additional funds in function 36 if we needed to fund travel above district. In function 51, I would like to increase that by 200,000, and this is our anticipated cost on our rate increases, utilities through the end of August and increase our community services. And this is meeting supplies, different advertisements that are placed in the newspaper, a projection that I feel will get us through August 31st. So again, this is an amendment to the budget, no new funds whatsoever, rather reorganizing some of the approved functions to better suit where our expenditures lie.
Questions, comments?
Donna, I'm sorry, the increase to the legal fees, you said it's not an increase? I mean, the 150,000?
It's an increase to the actual cost of the legal fees, but we're just moving money from one function to another to pay those additional fees. They were higher than anticipated.
Do they change yearly, the legal fees?
It
General
really
counsel?
depends on what services they provide us on an annual basis. So we project it based on historical information, and we may have heavier fees in one year than in another. So it's really not known until the actual events occur.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the amendments to the 2015-2016 general fund budget as presented. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Our next item is approval to amend the 2015-2016 debt service budget.
Thank you, Mr. Pendel, members of the board, Ms. Klein will present this item again.
Thank you again. This item is very similar to amending the general fund budget. This is amending the debt service budget. We received about a month ago our anticipated payments. As we sold bonds, we refunded bonds. Our payment schedules will change. Well, we actually sold bonds, so they're going to increase, absolutely. We are asking to increase the budget for the bond payments by $700,000. These funds are available in our capital interest account. So the money is accounted for, but for correct accounting procedures for TEA, the board has to actually approve the funds being spent out of Function 71, which is for debt service. So we approve the bond sale, we approve the payments we would make, but now we're going to make our payment in August, and we're making it in August so we can capitalize on that EDA and IFA and get that ball rolling to receive that approximately 70% of the payment. So we're making an early payment in August, which we didn't know when we approved the budget back a year ago, a little more than a year ago. So these funds are increasing the budget, but are currently available in the capital interest account. There are no funds from the district. It was all from the actual bond sale.
Questions, comments? Do you have a motion? Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the amendments to the 2015-2016 debt service budget as presented. Is there any discussion? Not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Klein.
Thank
Okay, approval of the Laura Bush Foundation for America's Libraries grants and amend the general fund. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Pendle. Members of the board, Ms. Klein again will present.
Thank you. Horizon High School applied for this grant and did a great job and received it. Because this is a foundation, we are not allowed to use it or account for it as we would a federal program. Because it's a foundational grant, it has to go into our general fund. So as very similar to the other items that you've just approved for for me or the district, we now need to increase Function 12, which is our library expenses, by $6,800 to actually expend this grant. It's another accounting treatment. They're crazy. All these rules drive me crazy too. But we are in compliance and need to have this amendment approved to actually expend the funds. So what will happen is we will increase our budget by $6,800 in Function 12, and the revenue to offset that comes from the grant.
Any questions on this grant? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Second? Have a motion and a second to approve the amendment to the general fund as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, motion carries. Our next item is approval to amend and restate contract for consolidation tax collection. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Pendle. Members of the board, again, Ms. Klein will present.
And this is my last one. The City of El Paso, the tax assessor collector, submitted the attached contract. Very minor changes to this contract. I did submit them in the letter for you. They were asked to have a volunteer citizen member that would, or their committee, to add one to it. They also, on item number 2, are adding that the city will reimburse the county for certain expenses. This is the contract that we utilize for the tax office to collect our taxes for us. We pay a little under $300,000 a year for their services. They do an excellent job collecting for us. And if we ran our own tax office, I couldn't tell you what the cost would be for that. So some very minor changes to their contract, but they did ask us to present it for approval to you.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Okay. Have a motion and a second to approve the amended and restated contract for consolidated tax collection as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Klein. We gave you a workout tonight. Thank you. Our next item is approval and adoption of the order to call the Clint Independent School District Board Trustee elections for November 8th, 2016, and any related election matters. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Pendle. Members of the board, Ms. Laura Cade will present this item for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Pendle, Mr. Martinez, members of the board. This item is for approval and adoption of the order to call the School Board of Trustees elections for November 8th. In accordance with Texas Education Code, Election Code, and Board Policy, the school board shall call an order of elections for November 8th, 2016 for the Clint ISD Board of Trustees, not later than the 71st day before Election Day. The order of elections calls for board elections to elect 3 school board members in the November 8th uniform election to serve for 4 years as Board of Trustees for the district.
Any questions? Motion to approve. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the order to call the Clint ISD School Board Trustee election for November 8th, 2016, and in any related election matters as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Kate.
Thank you.
Our next item is approval of the portable building sale to the town of Horizon. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Pendle, members of the board. Mr. Aldrich will be presenting this item for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Medell, members of the board. What we bring to you tonight is we were approached by the city of Horizon to purchase one of the old portables that were used for classrooms out at Mountain View High School. They missed our sale that we had here at Horizon. We've got 4 portables that are currently sitting on the East Montana campus that were moved from Mountain View High School because they were located in the area where we're going to build the new Health Science Center. These are portables that have a value of 0 on the district books. We're going to approach the board later about doing an auction to sell these portables as well, because again, they're not portables that we would like to put our students in. They're willing to offer us a fair market value of $3,000, which is about average of what we received during auction from those portables that were sold here at Horizon High School. So we would like to be able to sell that for them for in-kind services. And those in-kind services would be the fees that we would typically pay the city of Horizon for our building permits and all those things, which we will easily spend more than $3,000 here within the next 6 months. But it is at a fair market value for that. And again, we're probably getting more for it than what we would if we went to auction. If we have any questions on that.
Questions?
They'll move it?
Sir?
They'll move?
Yes, sir, they will do everything. In fact, we tried to talk them into taking more than one, but they weren't interested.
How about the ones in Clint Junior High? When are you gonna move?
At those, since we weren't doing anything at that location, we have not gone through and re-examined those within the last year. But eventually, Mr. Martinez, those are some that we would also like to eventually get rid of.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the portable building sale to the town of Horizon City as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, motion carries. Oh, abstain? Okay. You got that, Ms. Randall's going to abstain from voting on that. So 6-4 and one abstention. Thank you, Mr. Aldrich. Our next item is the approval of the proposed settlement of the El Paso Electric Company rate case, Public Utilities Commission docket number 44941, on the terms set out in the amend and restated stipulation and agreement of attachments thereto, and to the board authorize legal counsel for the Rate 41 group to execute the stipulation and such other documents as may be necessary to finalize the statement based on those terms. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Pendle, members of the board. Mr. Aldrich will also present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Pendell, members of the board. This is one that the board did approve back in April. There's been some changes to this since that time. There was actually an increase in the percentage for those Rate 41 meters. Back in April, you did approve, and all of the group did approve the 10.3% increase in our Rate 41 meters. There's been some change within the litigation, which has pushed that now to 11.77% for everyone. One thing, and I just wanted to make the board aware of, the Rate 41 meters is only about half of all of our utility meters. What the case overall is about is keeping those meters off of the regular meter rate. Right now, we have 32 Rate 41 meters out of 63 district-wide. All of our other meters are at a much higher rate than what these meters are. We estimate overall, even with this 11.7% increase, we're looking at approximately $1.3 million increase in our electrical bill. Right now, we spend, last year, we spent $10.9 million within our electrical. The importance behind this, to approve this, is to keep us on that rate 41 schedule. Because if we did not approve, it would only go up from there. So the administration is recommending that we do approve it, as everyone else has within the group. If we do not, then we would be going out on our own to face the electric company and looking at the rate for our rate 41 meters.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the proposed settlement of the El Paso Electric Company rate case as presented by Mr. Aldridge. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank
You, Mr. Aldridge. Okay, at this time, the time is 6:53. The Clint Board of Trustees will convene in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551071, consultation with board attorneys, Section 551074, personnel matters, Section 551082, school district employees disciplinary matters or complaints, Section 551081, school board personally identifiable information about public school students, closed meetings. Following items will be discussed. Discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of principal to be assigned to Carroll T. Welch Elementary School. Discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of principal to be assigned to East Montana Middle School. Discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of assistant principal to assigned Horizon Middle School. Discussion and possible action regarding appointment of assistant principal to be assigned to Horizon High School. Discussion only, duties and responsibilities of the superintendent of schools. Conduct of the superintendent conduct of the superintendent's annual evaluation, possible modifications to the superintendent's employment contract, and discussion including consultation with legal counsel regarding level 3 grievance of Laura Rivera. No action will be taken in closed session. And we'll be back as soon as possible. Have a good evening. We don't see you.
Question.
Yes, sir.
I thought we had deleted items F.
It's still on there. We're going to discuss it in executive session. It's on the agenda still.
We're gonna discuss it and
We'll discuss
off
it.
of the agenda.
It's still on the agenda, but we're gonna be discussing it, whether we want it to be on the agenda or not.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda. It's written there. Thank you. That way. Okay, we're back in open session at 9:11. 9:11. Just first item is for the board at this time is discussion and possible action regarding the appointment and principal to be assigned to Carroll T. Welch Elementary School. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Pendale, members of the board. At this time, I do recommend Margarita Flores as principal at Carroll T. Welch.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second to accept the superintendent's recommendation of Ms. Margarita Flores as the new principal to Carroll T. Welch Elementary School. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Margarita Flores is our new principal. Next item is appointment and principal to be assigned to East Montana Middle School.
Thank you, Mr. Pendale, members of the board. At this time, I recommend Dr. Juanita Guerra as principal at East Montana Middle School.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept the superintendent's recommendation of Dr. Juanita Guerra as the new principal for East Montana Middle School. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item is the appointment and assistant principal to be assigned to Horizon Middle School. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Pendale. I recommend Juan Vasquez as assistant principal at Horizon Middle School.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the superintendent's recommendation of Mr. Juan Vasquez for the assistant principal to be assigned to Horizon Middle School. Is there any discussion? Is it Horizon Middle School, right, or high school?
Horizon High School.
I'm sorry, I read that on the, I'm sorry. Be assigned to Horizon High School.
Thank you, Mr. Pendale. At this time, I recommend Jared Lucero as assistant principal for Horizon High School. I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the superintendent's recommendation of Mr. Jared Lucero as the new principal, assistant principal to Horizon High School. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next action is superintendent's annual evaluation and possible modification to the superintendent's employment contract. Is there a motion? We have a motion?
It's
Is there-
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this item until the next board meeting. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
No. Okay, let's have a show of hands. All those in favor of tabling, please raise your right hand. And wait a minute, we're having a revote. In favor of the tabling, raise your right hand. Yes.
We're voting on the wrong things at this time. We can't do the superintendent's evaluation as on the agenda here and discuss this contract.
Mr. Cruz, would you like to give us clarification on that statement?
It doesn't say or, it says and.
Right, they're both agendized, so if you want to take an action on the contract and not the evaluation, you can do that. The Open Meetings Act has been complied with, so they're not together, there's not one instrument, it's two separate instruments.
We still have a table?
Do a contract and not the evaluation?
Right, because the evaluation's not ready.
Well, what was your motion, to table both?
Table both
Well,
items, they haven't conducted the evaluation with the
No.
superintendent.
Right.
So that's still your motion to table it?
No.
Okay, and you're still
Until
second?
that
The
process-
second.
Until that process is taking place with the superintendent.
Okay. Now, we have a motion and a second to table, and we were gonna show a vote of hands because we couldn't tell they votes on raised on voice vote. All those in favor of tabling, raise your right hand. We have three.
Can we amend it to do like one and not the other?
Well, there's
There's the motion.
There's
a
a
motion, we
motion for
have
both.
to take this motion
Motion for
first.
first.
And then if there's another motion that wants to be made, it can be after to that. Is that correct, Mr. Cruz? Okay. Okay, so we have 3 in favor of tabling. All those opposed tabling, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion fails by a count of 3 to 4. Is there another motion on the table at this time?
I make a motion to approve the superintendent's contract by 1 year till the year 2000 and, help me, 21?
If we don't have access to the contract at this point, how could we possibly be voting on an item? that
We have a motion. You're out of order right now. We have a motion. Is there a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
How
Yes,
could
sir.
we possibly be discussing the superintendent's contract if we don't have a copy of the contract before us to review it?
Well, most everyone, I believe.
Most,
Okay. Well,
correct.
we'll let you
We
talk.
do not have a copy of the contract before us to review which items we might approve, which items we may not approve.
Well,
So
there's no
what we're asking
changes
is
to the
we-
contract
what-
whatsoever other than adding a year?
What we're being asked is to
One
rubber
one at
stamp,
a time, please.
what we're being asked is to rubber stamp a request that has been made for the wishes of the majority of the board, not what is supposed to be happening.
I believe it's only fair that we ask for a copy of the contract for everybody. I mean, we, even if it's got changes or not, just to review it, look it over, you know, it's only fair to get a copy before we approve it. Originally, I believe, Mr. Pendel, you were gonna table this item,
Well, originally it was the intent, but it was requested by.
and the
Superintendent added
evaluation,
here.
we haven't signed off on the evaluation either.
Evaluation is not finished yet. It won't be ready
Right.
until August meeting.
Right. Evaluation isn't finished, and we don't have a copy of the contract. So that's why I think we should table.
There is a copy online.
Mr. Cruz, do you have any,
The only thing that you're voting on, no changes to the contract except
The 1 year.
the 1 year, that's it.
Okay, we don't have a copy of the contract, Mr. Cruz.
Yeah.
That's my point.
That's where your vote comes in, whether you want to vote for it or not, then
Rubber stamp
it's whatever you,
without the document before us or time to review it and make recommendations. Go ahead and vote. You got the 4 votes. Go ahead.
is there any other discussion? Okay, yeah, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
For the
For the
contract, not
contract,
the,
for the
not
contract.
the evaluation, right?
Contract.
The contract,
But what is it that
Two.
you're voting on? Contract for what?
extending the contract 1 year.
That's correct. All those opposed, please raise your right hand. Okay, for a vote of 4 to 3, the motion carries. Okay. Next item we have is action regarding level 3 grievance hearing of Laura Rivera. Mr. Let's see, who's gonna make the motion?
Am I going to read it? Okay. So the move to deny Ms. Laura Veta's first 3 grievance remedies. However, the district administration is directed to follow through with the legal counsel's recommendations to enhance the communication between supervisors and the employee that the district certainly values. Furthermore, the 4th requested remedy is considered moot. Thus, Ms. Rivera will not be affected in this regard for the 2016-2017 school year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation of the recommendation of the board to, how would you term that? To actually approve, deny the grievance with certain conditions as discussed in executive session. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
If there's no objections, we stand adjourned at 9:20.